I'm currently looking for a car. Since I'm living on my own now and using public transportation to get everywhere. I'm looking for a new job though, and I don't want my options limited to wherever there is a bus stop. But because I'm a poor college student, most car dealerships are a bit over my budget, and when they do have cars that are in my price range, they tend to be shitty. So I've resorted to trying my luck on various sites like Craigslist, hoping to score a bargain deal. This happened a few nights ago, right when my school went on Thanksgiving break. Since I don't have to wake up early anymore, my whole sleeping schedule has flipped around, with me typically going to bed around 4 a.m. Because I'm on Thanksgiving break, I'm visiting home, but this particular night, both my parents were gone due to their mini vacation. So I'm chilling in my parents' basement at around 2 a.m. when I decide to check up on Craigslist and see if any car deals got posted since I last checked. Somebody had posted a killer deal on a fairly new one. Well, 2003 is new for me, a car that was exactly in my price range. The description said that there were no mechanical issues, it had passed all safety inspections, and the only reason they were selling it was that it was the seller's dad's car, and he had recently passed away. Seeing as how I was bored and restless, I texted the number provided, saying I was interested, and prepared myself for another few episodes of Grey's Anatomy. I figured there'd be no way they'd get back to me that night, but I wanted to be the first offer they saw in the morning when they woke up. A few minutes later, however, my phone buzzed. The guy texted me saying, "Hey, thanks for the interest. I didn't expect so many people to answer an ad posted at midnight. I have someone coming to look at it at around 7 a.m, so you can swing by after if they don't get it. Unless you want to come over now. I'm pulling an all-nighter, so it doesn't matter to me what time you want to come to look at the car." At this point, I had two options. Do the sensible thing and wait until it was light outside, or decide to go meet a stranger at 2 a.m. I could feel the bright angel and the dumb angel on opposing shoulders whispering in my ears, but the energy drinks I had just consumed helped the dumb angel win out. So I texted him back saying, "Sure. I rarely go out and do crazy things this late at night, but that's what being a stupid college kid is all about. Lol." He texted me his location, but it was pretty far outside of town. So he agreed to meet me halfway. Luckily, or unluckily I guess, I had my dad's car that I could use to get there since my parents had taken my mom's car. So I hopped in and drove to the address, and arrived at about 3 a.m. The whole thing was exciting, and I kind of reveled in the fact that I was doing something kind of stupid. But I figured that taking a risk for such a great deal was how you got the excellent deals. The one thing that freaked me out was that the place was super creepy. I parked in front of a parking garage and double-checked the address. Yup, it landed me in a seedy part of town that was deserted even during daylight hours. Before I could even text him, I got a text saying, "I see you." I looked around and a figure came out of the parking garage, waving his hands. I got out of my car and got a look. The guy was tall, about 40 years old, and balding. He had pale white skin and a strange smile. His whole face looked uncomfortable from how much he was grinning. Even in the dim light, I could see how yellow his teeth were. And while the lower half of his face was smiling, his eyes weren't. They looked dead. "Hey. So good to see you. The car is parked in the garage, let me take you to it." He didn't even wait for me to introduce myself before physically grabbing my arm and attempting to steer me into the dark parking garage. I may be a bit of a dumbass sometimes, but at this point, my alarm bells were going off. I wrenched myself free and tried to initiate a bit of small talk, but he kept shuffling around until he was eventually behind me, and kept shuffling towards me as I talked, trying to push me into the parking garage. At this point, I knew something was way off. I tried to glimpse into the garage and couldn't make out much. Just a small red light a few feet off the ground. Focusing on the red light, I made out something that made my entire body feel like it slumped to the ground in dread. It was a video camera. And now that my eyes were adjusting, I could make out a brief outline of someone standing right by the camera. Again, I'm a total idiot most of the time, but every so often I'll have a bright idea accidentally. Thank God this was one of those times. Oh shit, hang on, I forgot my wallet in my car. I tore myself free from his grasp and started jogging toward my dad's vehicle, sounding like the chill cucumber that I am. Without giving him a chance to respond, I looked over my shoulder and said, "Just give me a second, it's in the passenger seat." He was staring at me, and for once his dead eyes showed emotion. Rage. It was one of the most terrifying things I've ever seen, and I can't get it out of my head. His smile was so huge and so forced, but his eyes were incredibly angry. He didn't say anything as I got to my car, unlocked it, got into the driver's seat, and acted like I was rooting around in the passenger seat. I did hear something as I jammed my keys in the ignition and slammed my foot on the gas pedal. It was a really deep, really angry voice that was different from the guy I was talking to. I booked it out of there, but as I looked in my mirror, I saw about 10 figures run out of the parking garage, waving crowbars and bladed objects in the air. I was going about 80 miles per hour on State Street, but I didn't care. I drove that fast until I got home and parked. I was shaking. I ran into my home, locked all my doors, and checked to see if anybody followed. They didn't. I phoned the police, and they came over and took my statement. I'm not sure if they believed me at first, since I was already home by the time I called them. The Craigslist ad was pulled, and all I had were a series of text messages from what turned out to be a stolen phone. The parking garage was empty by the time the police got there, and they didn't find much. Besides 2 rolls of duct tape that were knocked over in a corner. I told my parents about it, even at the age of 19. I'm now no longer allowed to use their cars after 8 p.m. I don't know exactly what they were planning to do, but the weapons, duct tape, and video camera gave me a pretty good idea. When I was 21, I transferred to a college in San Francisco. I checked out a room for rent on Craigslist. It was in a nice 2-bedroom apartment. It was cheap rent and close to campus, so it was the ideal spot. The girl who lived there was 29, and her name was Beth. She was tall and wide, had jet black hair, and wore pale makeup. She seemed nice, although a little quiet. But she seemed to like me and agreed to let me move in. So far, so good. On my first night there we went out for pizza, and that's when I could tell that something was a little bit off with her. Throughout dinner, she kept telling me how much I look like Sheila Butte. I didn't know what to say, so I just shrugged it off with a thanks. I mean, I look nothing like Sheila Butte, so it just didn't make any sense to me. When we got back home she asked if I had seen her room yet. I said no. And so she took me to see it. Her walls were covered in posters of Sheila Butte. She even had printed out photos of him all over her mirror. She owned all his movies. I didn't know what to make of it. It was creepy. The whole night she had been saying I look like him, and now it was obvious to me that she was obsessed with the guy. A few weeks passed, and I never really saw her that much. We didn't spend any time together really. She would come home from work and practically run to her room. She would spend the whole night in there. She had this creepy high-pitched giggle, and I would hear her giggling through the walls all night. I wondered what the hell she could be doing. Occasionally she would come out and talk for like 2 minutes, and she would always be slurring her words, so I suspected she was drinking a lot. Sometimes she wouldn't say anything and she would just stand in the hallway and watch me in the living room. I would turn and see her and be surprised and say, "Hello Beth," and then there would be this long awkward pause, and she would give out a creepy high-pitched giggle. It was uncomfortable being around her. She gave me the chills. One night, I woke up at around 2 a.m. because I heard what sounded like the front door being unlocked. I came out of my bedroom, and all the lights were off, but I could still see Beth standing at the front door. She had her face against it, and she was turning the lock back and forth over and over again. And every time she turned the bolt she mumbled my name. Max Barker. Max Barker. Max Barker. Seeing her standing in the dark and mumbling my name really freaked me out. And it doesn't help that she kind of looks like a bigger version of the girl from The Ring. I just quietly went back to my room and tried to sleep. One night I was watching Gladiator and she stumbled out of her room and turned on the living room light, forcing me to pause the movie, which was annoying. She then asked me if I wanted to hear about her ex-boyfriend. It was an uneasy segue into the topic, but I just said sure and then awkwardly sat back to listen to her. 10 minutes into her story and she was so riled up. She was screaming at the top of her lungs about their breakup. I was worried that the neighbors were going to call the cops, and she wasn't listening to me when I was asking her to lower the volume. Amidst all of her screaming, one thing she said freaked me out. She was in such a fit and yelled, "I'll slit his fucking throat." That was a big game changer. Suddenly I had no idea what this girl was capable of. She was practically a stranger, and everything I had seen was becoming alarmingly disturbing. After a few more minutes she told me thanks for listening, and she startled her giggle. I got out of there pretty fast and went to my room to go to sleep. I had a pretty unsettled feeling about being in the house with her, and what was worse is that there was no lock on my bedroom door. I pushed the edge of my dresser in front of it to act as a little barricade. I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of my dresser scraping against the floor. Beth was pushing the door open. I turned on my light, shouting at her to stop. I could see her through the opening of the door. She was so drunk and had this insane look in her eyes. I pushed the door closed and yelled at her to go to bed. I could hear her walk back to her room, but I couldn't fall back asleep. The next morning when I went out into the hallway, my heart dropped. I saw one of her steak knives on the floor by my door. I got goosebumps all over my arms. All I could think about was her saying she would slit that guy's throat. I confronted her about it, and she said she didn't remember trying to push my door open. She said she didn't even remember telling me about her ex. I had enough. My lease was month to month, so I found a new spot and moved out. About a month after I moved out, she contacted me. I was at the movies, and my phone was off. When I got out, I turned my phone on, and to my shock, I received 40+ text messages that she had sent me over the past 2 hours. They were all just insane texts that ranged from everything from "Hi, how are you?" to "I fucking hate you." It was insane. I didn't respond, and I never heard from her again. I always wonder if I hadn't set my dresser in front of my door, would she have quietly come into my room and slit my throat? It freaks me out. It all started with a phone call at about 7 a.m. I picked up my phone to see who was calling me so early, but since I didn't recognize the number, I just put it on silent and fell back asleep. When I woke up again 3 hours later, I saw that I had 12 missed calls and 8 voicemails. Panic started to set in as I thought something horrible had happened to a family member. As I looked at all the missed numbers though, I realized that I didn't know who any of them were. I thought that was strange, since if something bad had happened to a family member, I should at least recognize one of the numbers. Then things only got weirder as I heard the first voicemail. "Hi, I was just giving you a call about the house you have for sale. I saw the Craigslist ad and was hoping to figure out a time I could be given a walkthrough. Just give me a call back at this number. Thanks." I figured that was just the wrong number and played the next voicemail. "Yeah, hi, I was calling about the house for sale on Craigslist. If you could give me a call back. I'd like to know some more about those murders before I take a walkthrough. Thanks and have a nice day." After hearing the second voicemail, I was starting to wonder what the hell was going on. The other 6 voicemails were all pretty much the same, inquiring about setting up a walkthrough and wanting to know about the murders. After I finished listening to the last one, I needed to find out what the hell was going on. I called the last number to leave a voicemail and a woman answered. When I asked her about the house she was calling about, she said there was an ad on Craigslist offering a house for dirt cheap, but it was only so cheap because the post said that a couple had been murdered in the house. I asked her if she could text me the link, and she assured me that she would. About 2 minutes later, my phone buzzed, and I saw her number pop up on the screen. I had no idea what was in store for me by clicking on that link. When the web page opened, the coldest chill I have ever felt shot down my spine. What I saw was a picture of my house on a Craigslist for sale ad. What made it worse was that the pictures had been taken within the last week. You could see the pumpkin that I carved last weekend. Then I read the post description. It said, "I have this sweet little home I am putting up for sale. It is located in the town, just a hop, skip and jump away from the city. Enjoy all the seclusion and privacy that this house will bring you. My asking price is $25,000. There is a reason I am asking basically nothing for this house. The precious couple who live there, a young man and woman, were murdered in the house a year ago. I figured I would get it out in the open now, so that I'm only contacted by people who are not bothered by this. Don't let this little mishap dissuade you though, the neighborhood is very safe. I promise. I never sleep, and we can set a time to take a walkthrough of the house. I look forward to hearing from you soon. My name, location, and number. All were listed in the ad." I felt like I had been socked in the gut. What the hell was going on? How did they know my number and my name? And the worst thing, my address. I immediately called my girlfriend over to see. I could see the horror set in on her face as she looked at the ad. I didn't think I could feel any worse until she pointed out how our car was in the picture. We were in the house when someone took these pictures. I immediately called the police to figure out what the hell to do. They informed me that I should immediately contact Craigslist to remove the posting. Other than that, there was nothing else they could do at the moment. The only crime that had technically been committed would be trespassing, but since whoever took the pictures wasn't on our property anymore, they couldn't do anything else. My girlfriend was on the phone with her mom in hysterics for most of the day yesterday. Today, we've just been on constant alert. Every sound we hear makes us jump. I think the worst part is, I know there's nothing that I can do. I feel so violated and so helpless.